Hello and welcome to North Country Matters. My name is Donna Seymour. I'm a member of the St. Lawrence County branch of the American Association of University Women, one of the civic partners for this show. Today I have Jenna Boss, a member of the Clarkson Class of 2015 with me in the studio. Jenna, welcome back to North Country Matters. A year ago, you were in here in the studio, and we were talking about your work that you've done as a body image activist and about that short documentary film that you made that focused on some interviews you did with fourth graders and with your college hockey teammates. And it's all part of your Pursuit of You campaign. And that addresses false advertising images and media images. But we know that false media images are not just confined to advertising. They go far beyond that. So last year we talked a lot about Barbie, and so we're going to kind of get Barbie off the hook this year. But
give her a break.
We'll give Barbie a break, right. But one of the things that we're going to talk about is take a look at the images that children are seeing in movies, particularly the movies that are being filmed for children. Last month, Disney released their latest version of Cinderella, which is largely a retelling of the 1950 animated movie, this time in live action. The 1950 version was Disney's first animated feature since Bambi, which had been done 8 years before, and actually that movie rescued Disney from near bankruptcy. So the 2015 version doesn't change the story, it just does it in live action with fewer animated mice and dances and all that kind of stuff.
CGI.
Exactly. So what do movies like the live action Cinderella tell us about body image, and what kind of messages does it send to young girls? Because that movie is largely targeted at little girls. There's not a lot as much for young guys in that.
I mean, I think a lot of the stuff that we see with Disney nowadays, in terms of body image, I know that they're trying to produce better stuff, so I haven't seen Cinderella, so I can't really bash it, but I've like you, read some stuff, and I think it's very, very harmful to unconscious little children, especially little girls. It subconsciously affects them more than I think that they know or their parents know. And I did a lot of research in my fall senior seminar class about media consumption and those types of things. And one of the things that I found very interesting was that, these movies are produced by men. So actually only 18% of the films that we see today are produced by women, written by women, cinematography, all that kind of stuff is 18% is women. So when you get men making the films, it's obviously going to have the male mindset, and I don't want to gender stereotype or anything, but that's historically what we've seen. So I think that yes, Cinderella is definitely harmful to young women because it does have that subconscious effect. But I have to give credit to Disney on some levels. I don't know if have you seen the movie Frozen?
No, but my granddaughters have seen it 1,000 times,
yes,
and I've heard about it. So,
and I have to give credit to them on that film because while there are, I think, in terms of body image, yes, there are, Elsa and all the female leads, they do have the stereotypical female body. However, the role has transitioned. There's Brave, too. Mm-hmm. A lot of the collaborations with Pixar are doing well, specifically animation. And then there's, Disney has also taken part. I don't know if you've ever seen Snow White and the Huntsman.
Yes, I have. Yep. That one I did see.
It's a great movie. I think that in terms of body image specifically, I think that it does a way, way better job. And there's another recent one Beauty and the Beast. That'll be an interesting one. I know Emma Watson is playing the lead, so she's the UN ambassador for feminism and
Let's
stuff like that.
Let's hope that will translate into
That's
the
what I'm
film.
saying. So
right, exactly.
I mean, I hope that will translate into the film. But as far as Cinderella goes, it's from what I've read about it, I do think it does have an effect on young girls, and but at the same time, I do think the media is in a flux right now, and I think that they're still producing the classic, Cinderellas, but at the same time, they're producing some of the better things, such as Frozen, where you have these heroines, kind of
They don't
standing
sit around
up,
waiting for Prince Charming to come.
Exactly. So it's in a time of flux, I guess.
Right. You know, one of the things about this 1915 retelling of Cinderella is really how old-fashioned it is. In fact, somewhat insipid when you get right down to it. You're right, Disney has created some very engaging fairy tale heroines that are described as feisty and as spirited and who don't sit around and wait to be saved. But this one, Cinderella just seems to accept her role as the unpaid housework drudge, servant. She doesn't complain about it. And boy, that's not something anybody does this day. And, you know, people just don't do that kind of thing. So that kind of a stereotypical portrayal tends to close doors for girls rather than open them, because nobody's going to want to do that kind of work. Certainly not the way she's forced to do it.
No, and I think it's very, very stereotypical because, well, like you pointed out, first of all, nobody does that nowadays, but second of all, you can't do that. You can't sit around and wait for Prince Charming. And I think that in the younger generation, I think with my generation, I do see a different drive, I guess you could say. But there are times where, you still get women who are looking to be that housewife, and I think that that's mainly due to the fact that that's what we grew up with. That's what we grew up watching. And it's interesting is because 51% of the U.S. population is female, yet 20% only make up Congress.
Right.
So,
right.
it's just exactly, there's imbalance, but there will be a consistent imbalance unless we start changing, telling young women that
who's at the table.
Yeah, who's at the table.
Right.
We want you to aspire to be something more than a housewife. And I think that movies like this, you're always going to get people who are going to say, it's just a movie.
Yeah, it doesn't
matter. It's just
matter,
a movie.
right.
It doesn't matter. I profoundly disagree with that. I think that movies have a very, very subconscious effect on you, and it's proven that they have a subconscious effect on you. And I think that, I said this last time I was here, knowledge simply isn't enough. Smart women know better. There was a Northeastern professor who gave a TED Talk. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's called, what's it called? I don't know. She talks about, beauty sickness. That's what she talks about, beauty sickness. And she says that in her research, it is proven that smart women know better. They know better than to believe what they are seeing is real, or, they know, but it has a subconscious effect on them. And they wish they don't. They wish they didn't think like that, but they do. And, I'm guilty of it.
Because they're bombarded with those images.
And I'm guilty of it, too. I mean, on average, the average kid sees about 500 ads a day. That's crazy. And on average, you spend about 10 hours and 45 minutes consuming media every day. I mean, we have a computer in our pocket at all times, an iPhone, right. These crazy electronics that can be held anywhere, and I think it's really, really affecting people that way. But yeah, I mean, I think that until the roles change, until we start seeing more oftentimes people, not specifically women, sitting around waiting for their Prince Charming, then I think it'll change. But right now, I think, like I said before, I think it's in a time of flux, but you see it almost in every movie.
Yeah, you do.
Yep.
And that point you brought up earlier about how few women are behind the camera or writing. Actually, I've seen some historical look at that, and there were actually more women behind the camera a few years ago than there are now. So while at a time when you would think those opportunities would be expanding, they've actually begun to shrink again.
Right.
So, and maybe a function of that is how expensive it is to get into the movie business anymore. It is such a pricey.
It's pricey. It's political, and it's all about who you know. At the end of the day, I think. Because I looked into getting into the movie business, I really love making films, and you go on Wikipedia, you go look up all these people how they've gotten there, like how they have got to where they have today, and a lot of their parents were somehow involved in the media. So it's a lot about who you know too, and like I said, it's a lot about women I think my age too right now, it's changing, but it's a lot about, you know, women not wanting to be a boss or not wanting to be bossy. Do you know what I'm saying?
The discomfort.
Stereotypical,
that discomfort with authority.
Right.
And exactly how do you do that? How do you project authority without being seen as somehow unattractive and worse words than bossy?
Exactly, yeah.
So,
worse words than bossy.
And this is a family show, so
exactly.
You know, one of the interesting things about Disney is that some of their best female characters are the villains. You know the bad people. I think of Cruella de Vil. I mean, you know, somebody you love to hate, but she was a three-dimensional character. Whereas in the case of 101 Dalmatians, the wife was a completely two-dimensional character who's barely in that at all, other than the fact that she owns a dog. But you know, you've got that wonderful, rich character in Cruella de Vil.
Right, and I think that you almost all the time see these villains and you know, they portrayed as ugly, just unattractive, fat, and just there's that stereotype where and I think a lot of times, like you said, when you see women portrayed as that evil person or enemy, it's often a lot worse than what evil men are portrayed as. So again, you get that stereotype, and it's just sad when you see people who I guess it's just sad when people say, well, yeah, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and it isn't, of course, the way it is. But that's a perfect segue, actually, to my next question, and that's the gender stereotyping that we're seeing that actually hurts men and boys. And again, this is, you know, not to pick on Disney, but I guess that's who we're going to pick on tonight. But they're very rigid in who they let be their heroes and princes. They're, you know, when you look at them, they're mostly big, tall, muscular white guys. Once in a while, you'll get somebody of a different ethnic background, but that doesn't help boys either when these kind of rigid, unemotional, one or two-dimensional characters are all they have to look up to either. So where do boys go for good media stereotypes, or are there any?
It's really, that's another thing too, is when people say, I mean, I do think that females have it harder, but I do think that men have it very hard too. There's actually a very good documentary it's called Misrepresentation, and it's spelled with two S's. Have you seen it?
I haven't, but that's something that a lot of AUW branches have shown and then had these kinds of discussions around.
It's a very good film.
Yes.
It's a very good documentary. I recommend watching it. But they're actually in the process of producing a documentary about men and about boys, young boys growing up and, you know, being taught, you know, don't cry, be tough, and don't show emotion, all these other things. So I'm really excited to see where that goes. But in a sense, yes, that's pretty stereotypical too. When you watch these movies, you see, you know, Chris Hemsworth and all these other guys who you kind of question about, I guess from a healthy aspect, how they got that big or how they looked so toned and how they looked so jacked and everything like that. But yeah, I think it definitely affects men too, because I mean, when you're taught to not show emotion, I think in a relationship that's kind of hypocritical. You can't not show emotion, especially in a relationship, but when you're, you know, constantly told not to, I think and you're suppressing it.
Or if there's something that you're getting all these negative messages when you do. So
and I think it definitely has an effect, and it's sad because it's like I said, it's in the recent years you've seen a lot of females speaking up about you know, feminism and trying to change the media too. But now I think specifically in the last 6 months, I've seen a lot more advocacy for males and men and the media that they consume.
So that's a good thing. That's a very good thing.
Yes,
they're
it's a very
starting to get real portrayals of real human beings, not these cardboard figures.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's very important, but I think it's again, it's going to take a while.
It is one of the things that we know that media exposure shapes a person's identity and their understanding of the world, and so we have to really question what the media is saying. And one of the really tough things nowadays is how much of the media is really targeted at children in the sense of trying to get them to buy something or to become purchasers. And since 2000, Disney has marketed the idea of their princesses. They've turned that into a multi-billion-dollar effort that targets very young children. I mean, it's ridiculous what you can see at Halloween time in terms of the money that parents spend on costumes to make somebody look like, one of their daughters look like a princess. And of course the whole princess thing is such a negative concept anyway because it is so divorced from reality. So in terms of marketing at kids, how do you think that these media portrayals damage a young person's sense of self and close doors to a wider ambition? If all you want to do is be a princess, that's not much of a job title.
I know. It was funny because I was driving in a car today and there was an ad about cancer. And there was, I want to say she was 8 years old talking about, probably 6 actually. She was talking about cancer and how she's overcome it and you're very humbled. And then she says, well, one day I want to grow up and I want to be X, Y, and I also want to be a princess.
Yeah.
So I thought about it and I was like, oh, man, you're still that ideal. Well, I mean, for again, gender stereotypes, you'll see men, and I think you'll see young boys say, I want to be a superhero, I want to be Batman, I want to be all these things, and that's fine, but you never...
But those are actually action characters
right.
and action figures.
And
as
they're doing
to,
something.
Yes, exactly.
And, which, you got to look at both sides, but I think that what they're taught to aspire to be, like I said earlier, is very detrimental because it's not realistic. I mean, a superhero can take many different forms. I mean, it's not just Batman. I mean, it can be a doctor. Like I consider a doctor a superhero. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But a princess is pretty
passive.
Yes,
it's pretty passive.
It's pretty passive, and it's pretty. You can't really do much, and it's not realistic, like we've said. But it's very detrimental, and I think that it really strikes young girls at a certain age, specifically puberty. And it's proven that 53% of girls before they hit puberty have a very good self-esteem, and only 53% view their bodies negatively. But right after puberty, when you ask them that same question around, they're 15, 16, it spikes up to 78. So I think that during those time periods, I think that when you're younger, it kind of shapes the way you believe about yourself. So when you hit puberty, those are tough times.
Yes, they are.
They're tough times for everybody. And I think that it has a profound impact on the way that you view yourself. So yes, I do think it has a very, very negative effect. And there's nothing, like I said, there's nothing wrong with wanting to dress up like a princess every once in a while, but I think that it's gotten to the point.
It's not a job title.
It's not a job title.
Right.
It's not a job title. It's not something to aspire to be. So.
One of the things that I found really interesting about the marketing around Cinderella is that there's a major marketing effect being made to women between their mid-30s and their mid-50s who missed the whole princess thing as they were growing up. And you're talking about some significant financial gain to these companies there's jewelry, there's Cinderella jewelry, and there's all kinds of stuff like that. And I mean, these are hundreds of dollars that they're trying to get people to buy into. And at some point, you just have to feel like it's sort of like shameless commercialism at every single level. And it doesn't matter whether you're 5 or 55, they're out to get you and your money.
I feel like they're always out to get you and your money. So, I mean, it's kind of, and that's something that's hard to change because, I mean, there are certain people in the world who, that's just what they look for is, money, and that's sad. But some people are just, they won't change, and that's sad. But
no, and it's targeting people's insecurities.
Exactly.
In some ways. One of the things that parents can do to help their children learn to analyze media portrayals is through media literacy, and that there's actually specific things that processes you can go through to actually take a look at what these images are and deconstruct them so that you understand what's happening, and that parents could go to a movie and they could sit with their kids and then actually talk about what they saw and whether that was realistic or not. So what are some of the techniques that you use when you're deconstructing a media message that parents could use with their kids to help develop these critical thinking analysis tools?
It's really hard when you're, kids are that young. But I think that, when you watch a movie, because, you're going to watch these films that, they gender stereotype and they portray certain types of bodies. There's obviously the one, know what you're watching, maybe sometimes before you go see it, do a little research. Second of all, after you watch it, maybe take a little time to yourself to think about, how or what could affect your children negatively, but also positively too. Don't just look at the negative side of things, look at the positive side. Frozen, I like to go back to that one just because it did a marvelous job, I think, at portraying what females can do. It wasn't the Prince Charming who saved her, it was actually her sister. And I think that, if you have a sister, or even if you have just a sibling in general, you can deconstruct that and say, that's how much you guys should love each other. You should always be there for each other. At the same time, I do think that, again, picking on Frozen, the body images that they portray, Elsa and I'm drawing a blank on her other name. Anna, yeah, Elsa and Anna. They have, they're very skinny. They have dresses,
those wonderful
big eyes.
Yeah, those alien. I always call them the alien Disney eyes. They never have human-looking eyes. No,
right.
Disney characters never do.
Yes, but at the same time, the lead male role does. So it's I think it's a little bit of just deconstructing it yourself and then trying to translate that to your younger children, if that makes sense. And like I said, looking at the positives and negatives and, just really telling them, that's not real, but the idea behind it, you can love your sibling, do whatever it takes to protect them, help them, those kind of things. But yeah.
So definitely, as you say, doing a little homework before you take a child to a movie is a good idea. And
right.
then, if you actually, it may change a little bit about, just because everybody else is going to it, you may choose not to go to it
right.
because it isn't sending the message that you want your child to get. Last week in France, members of the French Parliament approved a law that will ban the use of fashion models that are deemed to be too thin, because as we both know, a lot of models are completely divorced from real body type. They're very, very thin. And under this new French law, models will have to show that they have a body mass index above a certain level. Modeling houses that break the law will face fines and 6 months in jail. And the lower house of Parliament also passed a separate measure making it illegal to condone anorexia, because there are a lot of internet sites that are encouraging, they're encouraging dangerous weight loss. And in France alone, there's an estimated 40,000 people who suffer from anorexia, and of course, 9 out of 10 of them are women and girls, and that's pretty common. But that's an interesting that as a society, they have decided to take a legislative approach to some of these unhealthy body images as part of their larger look at health in general. So do you think that's a good approach, a legislative approach, or can it more be done with education?
I think that's a twofold question. First, I think that it's awesome that, that they're taking action on something that I consider very serious. I did a lot of research on BMI though, and I don't agree with it because first of all, there's an equation that goes to every single person, and it basically states if you are good enough or if you're not good enough. So I do not believe in BMI because I think that everybody's bodies are different.
That's an artificial
It's an artificial
measurement,
Yes, an artificial measurement along with weight, because I hate the word, there's an average BMI and there's an average weight. You cannot say that because everybody is going to weigh something different. Everybody's going to be a different size. Everybody's going to fit pants differently. So I don't think that is a good way to go about it. And two, because when you're telling some people that they are too skinny, some people are just naturally very thin. So those girls who can't gain weight by being healthy, which I consider, eating having the proper nutrition, not over-exercising, which a lot of times you see with anorexic people, and that's just their body type, I do feel bad for them because some people just have lower BMIs. For example, we have to get I'm an athlete, and we had to get body mass index tested. What was it? It was once a month, my freshman, sophomore year. And I think that's very detrimental because you're told that you are either over or too low. And for example, there was one girl on my team who just had, I think it was 9% body fat. And that's crazy. That is like, you have no fat on your body pretty much. But that was just her body type. And no matter how much pasta she ate,
she couldn't put weight on.
She could not put weight on, maybe a couple pounds. But so I don't believe in the BMI. I do think it's having a good effect. I do think that because they're acknowledging it, I like that. But other than that, I don't know. I don't know. So it's interesting because you see a lot of these countries, such as France. Australia is another big one. A little bit of Switzerland too. They're now really, really pro body image, or you see them taking steps towards the media. And I also think that, yes, media literacy will help. Like I said earlier, knowledge is not everything. I think there needs to be a drive in the industry to push no Photoshop, for example.
Right. Which we have seen successful campaigns of.
Right? Yep. And I think that's very, that's a huge element to it. You know, knowledge is half of it, but the other half is there has to be some sort of shift in the industry because, like I said, it affects you subconsciously. Right.
So you're going to graduate next month in May from Clarkson, and are you going to continue to do your work on body and media images, and how might you turn your passion for this into a paying profession?
Well, yes, I have applied for some jobs pertaining health because I do have a love for, fitness, wellness, nutrition, and also the mental aspect of it, body image. So I look to pursue stuff, editorial columns, stuff like that. But I also started my own business. It's called The Unmet Need, TON for short. And what it basically looks to do is it's a website and an app that are interchangeable, and you can take pictures of advertisements you do or you don't like, post them, and then with the hashtags, the tags that you use, the companies that you associate with your posts, we take that information and take that data and sell it to those companies. So it's kind of like
feedback to them about whether they're sending the right message or not.
The slogan is "You have a voice in the fashion and media industry." Yeah. So it's in the development phase right now. I hope to pursue that. I hope that it works. I hope that people like the idea. And obviously I had the label, which we talked about last time, which is fully trademarked now, which is great. So you can actually use that. And people can come to me and use that. It's trademarked. And so yes, I'm looking to pursue it, but we'll see. We'll see where it ends up. It's going to be an interesting. Well,
it's been a lot of fun getting to know you over the years as you've been here at Clarkson, and you're doing really important work. It's great that your passion was met so well by your academic experience and your academic opportunities. And I thank you for coming in, and thank you for all the work that you've done while you've been here at Clarkson, and we look to hear more good things from you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so our time is up. Thank you. These conversations are a production of North Country Matters, produced here in the studio of WCKN on the campus of Clarkson University. This show is a civic collaboration between the St. Lawrence County branch of the American Association of University Women, the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters, and the Communication and Media Department here at Clarkson. Until next time, remember, our North Country matters.